Moonlighter, which is developed by Digital Sun and published by 11-Bit Studios, which is killing it, by the way. Good job 11-Bit on Frostpunk and subsequently Children of Morta, which is coming out later. But Moonlighter is one of those games that just will amaze you with its presentation. The animation and the pixel art style is just mesmerizing to look at. I could just watch a movie made in this pixel art style, and the music is beautiful as well. But how does the gameplay hold up? Well, that is what we'll be talking about in today's Indiescovery. The premise of the game is a simple one that I connected with immediately. You play as Will, a man who's inherited his family store, quite fittingly called Moonlighter. The life of a shopkeep, while peaceful, does not satisfy Will's need for adventure, and to pursue his secret, or not so secret, dream of being a hero, he moonlights as an explorer in the dungeons nearby town. Add to that the mystery of the dungeons and a fabled key to the fifth door, and you've got yourself a lovely setup in a quiet and believably magical world. The premise at its core is relatable and drew me in. Heck, anyone who's had a day job to try and fund their passion will immediately understand the work that goes into making it happen. And even though Will is a silent protagonist like Link of Zelda fame, I still felt for him without dialogue on his part. I wanted to make sure he succeeded. The bright and friendly pixel art style and music were my favorite parts of this game and the most memorable parts. Whether you're in the dungeons or above ground in the village, everything is nice to look at and filled with detail. What really got me was the animation. The sprites are expressive, the dungeons are filled with small movements like bugs or scorpions that scutter out of the way, and your character, particularly in the dungeons, looks good as he dodges and fights his way through the levels. Everything is so smooth, so easy on the eyes, and so expressive. I'd really love to live in this world. There are two major sections to Moonlighter, those procedurally generated dungeons and the store management village growth phase. The dungeons in Moonlighter are procedurally generated, but quite simply structured. All of them have 3 fairly quick levels with a one-time boss on the 4th, and your goal in these dungeons is to explore, loot, and get out of there intact. I love the tongue-in-cheek lore that you find in the campsite rooms of the dungeons, showing that the characters in the game actually are acknowledging the fact that the dungeon shifts and changes, explaining the procedural generation in a way I don't think I've seen in a game. You can always leave the dungeon before arriving to the big boss at the end, but it will cost a pretty penny, especially in the lower levels and in the later dungeons. You can try and make it all the way to the boss, where if you defeat it, you can return to the village with all the loot you can carry. In the worst case scenario, you die and can return to the village with only the loot in the top row of your inventory. A painful prospect. The first dungeon took me the most time as I had to grind to get items to sell to level up my equipment and add enchantments, but once that first dungeon was complete, the pacing picked up quite a bit. Combat is satisfying, although not immensely complex, which, depending on your style, could be a pro or a con. It's one of those games that eventually, if you repeat the dungeons enough, you'll have enough money to upgrade your weapons and make it. It feels very much like a Zelda game, and you can always carry 2 different weapons to account for different enemy types. I was a huge fan of the spear and the sword and shield combo. You have a basic and a charged attack, and that's pretty much it. But again, it feels good. The game does recommend you start on hard mode, and I agree. I was a bit intimidated at first, but once you finish that initial grind for the upgrades, it's mostly smooth sailing from there. If I had gone lower than hard mode, I probably would have felt it was too easy. Many of the items you pick up will have a curse, essentially a condition in which you must organize it in your inventory. Otherwise, sometimes not so convenient things will happen. Perhaps an item must stay near the top or bottom of your inventory, or maybe it'll send the item next to it immediately back to the shop when you move it from the dungeon chest to your pack. More obnoxiously, perhaps it'll destroy the item next to it upon your exit from the dungeon if you forget to not put it in the right spot. Fortunately, the indicators for items that have a status curse and the items it will affect are clear, and as long as you're checking in with it, it shouldn't be too much of a hassle. But of course, once you get back home, your work isn't done. You're a Moonlighter, remember? Not a hero. While the option to sleep is there, I actually found myself rarely using it. There's work to be done, right? Instead of having you plop the items down and sit at the cash register as a passive shopkeep, you need to stay just as active as in the dungeons managing the store. Between figuring out the optimal pricing with a handy journal that'll keep a ledger for you, a moat of customers, and constantly running back and forth to both restock and reprice your items, you will stay busy and the day will fly by. Pricing can be a bit of a crapshoot at first. I mean, how am I supposed to know what a Golem blueprint is running these days? So I recommend just selling one item at a time to balance that out before selling items in stacks, but you do you. Thieves will occasionally come and try to pilfer your goods as well, so keep an eye out for them, and eventually you'll be able to maximize profits with even more item requests from villagers and additions to your shop via a store decor salesman. Like Stardew Valley and Harvest Moon, the more successful your shop, the more you're able to help financially back some expansions to the town. Perhaps instead of an adventurer, becoming a town mayor is in your future. Expanding the town unlocks weapon and enchantment options for Will to boost his prowess in the dungeons, as well as additional shops that, again, can provide decor for your store to boost profits, and even a bank. And you can begin to expand your shop as well, adding item tables, discount bins, and even tip jars for your stellar customer service. Unlike Harvest Moon or Stardew though, don't expect to woo any villagers or farm, but with all the other stuff on your plate, who has time for that anyway? This game is so addictive and fun to play. Its simplicity allowed me to get into it quickly and lose myself in the life of a shopkeep moonlighting as a hero. The feedback loop felt good to me, but I can see how if you're a gamer who isn't into repetition or wants maybe more challenging and pure dungeon crawling, you may not enjoy this as much. Also, while the upgrading system was fun, I would have loved to see a bit more impact on gameplay when switching between weapons. There was a reason I stuck with the spear for 90% of the game. Switching to other weapons didn't seem to change that much of the experience, so I didn't elect to experiment a ton once I realized that. Finally, there was so much potential with the lore setup, particularly at the start of the game, that I wish they had fleshed it out a little bit more by the end. Mostly because I enjoyed the setup so much, so I was a little disappointed in how little depth it actually got into, but those were really minor details in a really great game. Overall, I would absolutely recommend Moonlighter. I played it on PC, but I could see this being perfect for while on the go using the Switch, and I may just get it on there for when I travel. I could see the biggest gripe that some gamers may have is that the game is too simple and too repetitive, but for whatever reason, I enjoyed that. I could also see this game as a great introduction to other titles in those genres of dungeon crawling and shop management, and that accessibility also appealed to me. I can tell my gamer friends and friends who are interested in games about this title and see both groups enjoying and talking about it. Enjoy this Indiescovery? Then be sure to click on that subscribe button or hit that like button. It really helps and supports the channel and lets me know what you guys like to see. And if you subscribe, you will get more indie game news, interviews, content, event footage. Pretty much if you want stuff about indie games, this is where I hope you come to find them. And if you enjoy watching live streams, be sure to tune in to my Twitch channel. It's twitch.tv/Kimchica, and I go live Monday through Friday. Slight changes to the schedule, but usually you can find me live most days of the week, usually between the hours of 11 a.m. Pacific time and about 1 p.m. Pacific time. So with that, I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you are playing some awesome indie games. Let me know if you've got any recommendations, and I will see you in the next video.